Well, welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Well, I went over to visit my good buddy Mr. JN the other day. I was talking to him on the phone a few days ago, and I was talking about how my Wild Thing had failed. Crank went bad on it. And he said, you know, I think I got one of those laying around here. Some neighbor gave it to me. It's just sitting on the shelf, and you can have it. So I went over the other day, and here it is, and you can see what a filthy, horrible mess it is. And it seems to have a good crank in it, but the cylinder I don't think is very good on it, because the compression on it is pretty minimal. The thing that's interesting on it too, though, is my other one is, the original one is an earlier model, and this one has the front exhaust exit. The other one exited behind it, and that was part of the problem with them getting hot and failing regularly. But anyway, get this crummy cover off here. See if that is like to stick. You know, it's underneath it's fairly clean, and flywheel doesn't have too much stuff in it, and like I say, it has terrible compression. But amazingly enough, I did get it to run by priming it, so we'll see if we can get it to pop off for you. Okay, well, I'll put a little gas down the cylinder here. Take the air cleaner off it. So let's see if we can get it to pop off here. Don't sound very good. But anyway, I think that we'll be able to use the parts off this to rebuild Mr. Pooh and put the Pooh saw back in operation. No modifications like I did to the air filter or anything on this one. Completely stock. I'll be back with some more BS here. Well, when I first initially looked at this saw, I thought it was a low hour saw, but it actually has some time on it. And I'll show you why saws like this are for people that shouldn't own chainsaws, or they should have an electric one. But I'm going to come over and show how filthy this thing is and show you problems with it. I checked it, had low compression, and so I pulled the exhaust off, and sure enough it's got a scored cylinder, but amazingly enough it tries to run, which is kind of weird, because when these things were new and just come out of the store, a lot of them didn't even run because they had lots of quality control issues with these saws. You either got a good one or a no good one. So anyway, we'll come over and check this thing out. Okay, you can just see it's really filthy, although under the hood here it's not that bad. They must have cleaned it off, or somebody did, but even under here it's not that bad. But here, I'll take the cover off here. See how caked up and horrible it is. The clutch drum actually has wear on the teeth there, probably about a third of the way through, so it had some service. You know, you can still see some of the decal or paint on it. It said Wild Thing, but 18-inch. But anyway, we'll come back and show you the difference between the Mr. Pooh and this one. Okay, well, here's the infamous Mr. Pooh that started the Pooh-land collecting. So anyway, the saws look pretty much identical, but there are some differences. The top cover is totally different. The side cover is different. The motor's the same, but fuel cap and oil cap are the same, and the side cover's the same. So this one is a 2000 model year, and this one's a 2006. And so one of the really bad features of this saw originally was the exhaust system. They had the outlet come in behind the muffler, and so all that two-stroke drool and heat go right into the area where the cylinder is. And they just had a little shield in there to kind of sort of protect it, but all that it could just build up in there over time. And the problem with the coils are mounted in plastic on the side case, and when the exhaust came back on the back side of these in hot weather, the plastic would warp, and then the gap between the flywheel and the coil would widen up and it would lose spark, and in cold weather it'd start right back up. But anyway, this one they actually put the outlet on the front here, which was a good upgrade. But like I say, this one sort of runs and it sounds really bad. This one, the crank failed in it, so I'm going to swipe the crank out of this one and put it in this one, put this one back into operation. But anyway, people that bought these should have bought an electric saw. Like I say, they used really cheap oil in this stuff, this saw here. I took the exhaust off, and there's carbon in the port. It's probably about 1/8 of a way plugged up, mostly on the bottom. And the top of the piston looks terrible. It's got a nice thick layer on there, so using the right and good oil really makes a big difference, because if this saw gets that bad with 50-to-1 oil mix, that's really bad. Well, the plug has a lot of carbon and weird stuff on it. When I first checked the saw, it didn't have any spark. It's just because the spark plug is so filled up with oil crud, carbon. So they used some really cheap oil in this saw. Well, we want to talk a little bit about the nemesis of being a junk collector, and that's rust. And since gas engines are a big part of what we do, of all types, all the old ones have metal gas tanks. Now this one here is off a 1919 Fairbanks Morse hit and miss engine, and made out of galvanized steel, and it's got a lot of remnants of old fuel in it, and it's also got rust, and it actually has a little rust hole right here which I'll patch. But anyway, I've tried numerous different avenues of trying to get rid of rust, and I've tried acid of different types, muriatic acid especially. It works really good, but it's really nasty stuff to deal with, and the rust foams up and it has a really bad smell. And I've actually had some soldered gas tanks that ate the solder and they fell apart, so I quit using that. And so what I've been using for a long time is good old vinegar. Well, here's the vinegar we use. It comes in different amounts of acidity. This is 5%. This is what you find at the grocery stores. They also make it in 10 and 15%, but I've never found any sources for it. But anyway, on our last junk collecting trip, we got that little Briggs & Stratton washing machine engine, and here's the tank off it. It had a fair amount of rust in it. And so I filled it with vinegar. Well, you can see in there that the large portion of rust is out of it. There's a little teeny bit of rust left. So we're going to run it through the grinder again. So what we use is pea gravel. We'll get that filled up and we'll be back. Well, my motto was use what you have. So I just built this out of basically junk I had laying around. It's my gas tank rotisserie. And so I had some metal I had off a old piece of equipment for the ends here. I built a wood frame, and this is wood here. And then self-centering bearings here. And down here I have a gearbox with a great big reduction, small pulley here and a big one here, so this thing turns over really slowly. So anyway, like I say, fill these with gravel. You can put them on this way or this way to get, more effective cleaning. And so I'll get it put on here and be right back when it's ready to go. Okay, well, we get all mounted and ready to go. Get the hose plug and the cap on, and I put a plastic in there so it gravel doesn't damage the cap. So anyway, that'll grind it out, and then once it's done we'll use compressed air. And then I'll put in some more vinegar or some Evaporust I just recently got. Get any rust out of it and put gas tank sealant in it. But I'll be right back. Well, the other thing this is really great for is motorcycle gas tanks. This is off a Honda 305 Scrambler. And the way I built this is a stop. And then I take foam and put over here different thicknesses to fill in between here, and then strap it on, and it works really good for cleaning these old tanks up too. I'll show you one other feature. Be right back here. So like I say, you can put the tanks on in different ways, and a lot of times you get a lot of rust in the corners here, and rolling them this way doesn't always take it out, or turning it so it's straight up and down doesn't get it out either all the way. So what I do with that, use what you have. I have an old Coleman gas can here. Put it under there. That'll concentrate all the gravel rubbing in this whole area here. So there you have it, Mr. Obsolete's fabulous invention. Got one more thing we want to talk about. Well, the last part of the video here is, if you go back and watch our couple of older videos here, Junkets Where It Finds You. Well, when we picked up the chainsaw, the Mac 15, and a few other goodies in there, it was all a you have to take everything in this box type deal, and so this was in there. So I'm gonna see how many of you out there can figure out what it is. So let me know in the comments. I know what it is. Amazingly enough, I took the pump out here and it has a leather diaphragm, and I get all cleaned up and working really good. It pressurizes the tank, but the tank is dirty, so it'll need some work. But anyway, we'll see how many of you can figure out what this fine vintage treasure is. Vintage is best. We'll see you in the next exciting vintage video.